Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Picard. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, aka Caliban, and mommy's all right, daddy's all right, he's just got a bloody beard. Joining me on the show, as usual, is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. It's great to be here. It's great to be anywhere, isn't it?
It is, Minnesota. It's sunny. It was sunny today.
Yeah.
The sun was out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were outside. I was outside. It felt good.
Enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am picking through my yard as the snow melts and finding out that the contractors that flipped our house left a lot of little surprises for us there. So I found a 3.5 inch length of pipe today. And this is like plumbing pipe. This is like real
free pipe.
Yeah, it's free pipe. Right, exactly.
Free screws, I bet, are out there. Free nails.
One of the tires on my car already found one of those screws. So got that fixed. So
but
yeah,
that happened to me like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You got the flat tire. Yeah. So anyway, spring has sprung, and so have all the things out of my lawn.
Spring has sprung, and so have the screws in my tires.
And hopefully flowers and mayflowers and pilgrims and however that works. Let's talk about the world of Star Trek. And there's no real news to talk about in the world of Star Trek, but I did want to talk a little bit about just some scuttlebutt, just some chit-chat from the world of Star Trek. Did you see the character posters that came out recently for Star Trek Strange New World Season 2?
No. I thought you started talking and I was like, for Barbie? Yes.
Yeah, or the Barbie trailer.
For Barbie? Absolutely.
There's nothing, there's no real revelations. They're just sort of like, side profile pictures of the main cast. Mm-hmm. They all look really good still. They're really great pictures, very multicolored in that sort of, the way that Strange New Worlds has kept the kind of purples and greens and oranges from the original TOS, that kind of color scheme. Hair's on point. Mount still looks pretty good there. But it doesn't give us any idea of what to expect, I don't think, coming up for Season 2. If you could remember way, way back to when we talked about Strange New World Season 1, do you have anything on your wish list of things that you wanted to see in Season 2?
In Season 2, I don't remember what I said last time. Giant green hand. Oh.
Unicorn dog.
Unicorn dog. I would love to see a weird alien. A weird alien like animal. I would love the Horta. Mm-hmm. But if they give us the Horta, I'll be like, it's too much. We know her already.
Yeah. Don't kill her. Or maybe she's like depressed and now she's like, kill I. Too dark. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I wouldn't say no to a godlike alien, a Trelane or something like that. I think that Strange New Worlds has been doing its thing. It's sort of blending of the kind of new aesthetic with the TOS kind of aesthetic as well. And we haven't, other than Carl in Discovery, we haven't really seen a real Q type figure. Maybe we could, try that out. Do another costume episode. Have him snap
an early Q type. Oh, a costume episode.
or turn random crew number 3 into a cube or something like that. And he's a cube. Oh, stop this.
That's a lower decks move.
Yeah, well,
that one's a Mike McMahon original.
Lower Decks has shot the moon on all those things. Yeah. Do you think that Lower Decks makes it tougher for Star Trek to be weird when it sort of calls out all the weird things? Because it's mostly looking backwards. It's pointing out new things. I guess the writers can come up with like new weird Star Trek stuff. But every time there's another like, Mogatu or something like that, now that Lower Decks has done a thing, it's like, oh, it's the Mogatu. You think that's a problem?
No. I mean, I also feel like now Star Trek, they're not doing like the same kind of weird stuff they were doing back then. So I think it's free game for Lower Decks. And I also think that Lower Decks is free to do anything and everything it wants because it's animated. Mm-hmm. Whereas like to have the Mogatu on like an episode of Strange New Worlds would be like a whole big thing, to have, and the next episode to have the cube, like couldn't do the Horta and the Mogatu in,
Yeah, if there
We're
was a
shelling out the
Megado,
cash. Is there's too much going on?
yeah, it would like tear people's flesh off, and we'd see it like
Yeah.
eating them, and yeah, it gets kind of bloody sometimes. Um, I wanted to also start a new segment here at the 8th episode of this coverage of season 3 of Picard
As you're
called
right, as you should.
Matalas Thoughts, where once again we dive into the crazy things that Terry Matalas says. You have to wonder if there was this much media way back in the day on like when Trek was on Desilu. If they asked Gene Kuhn if he would be any good like dealing with reporters, because I feel like a lot of these guys, they're like, they got the writer brains, they're writing all the great stories, but then they talk and they're just like, I don't know, yeah, well, maybe we'll do this, maybe we'll do this. And so you get a lot of like information out of these interviews that I think tell you a lot more about what they want to happen than what is
Yeah.
happening necessarily. And recently, Terry Matalas has pitched an idea, probably to his producers, but is really kind of putting it out to the internet. The idea of a Star Trek legacy, which would essentially be a spin-off of Picard that would take the characters minus our emeritus characters who will probably be stepping down at the end of this and expanding it out into the world. Perhaps Captain Seven, commanding the USS Titan, and seeing characters like the LaForge daughters and the younger characters going on into the galaxy. He's really trying to make this happen, and I've seen fans talking about this. What do you think about the prospect of something like that?
Respectfully, I would like to smooch a very fond farewell to most of these characters. I love them. I think they're falling into this trap where it's so easy to be like, yeah, more of the same. We want Picard. We love Next Generation. Let's do that. Let's just do that. Let's do Geordi's Daughters. But it's like, if you're going to do Geordi's Daughters, then you might as well just do a whole new show. It's like, it doesn't need to be a legacy. And I hope that they keep it that way, because I feel like, and I don't know if I keep saying this about Picard itself, but if it's meant to be a goodbye, I would like it to be a goodbye. And it would be great to see those characters, like it wasn't actually Tuvok, but we got the little Tuvok cameo, just like something like that, where it's like every once in a while it's like, oh, we got to call up so-and-so at Starfleet Command, and then it's like bing, bang, boom, and it's Seven, and she's like, what do you want? No!
Yeah, Yeah.
I would love that. Or like, at some point in the future, like it's like, oh my gosh, we have to see the Admiral. It's Admiral Seven. That would be great in a different show. But I would love for them to move, and I take it back, because I'm not talking about Strange New Worlds. Give me 8 more seasons of Strange New Worlds.
Right.
I don't care. But I feel like, as far as the rest of it, a legacy show, I'm kind of, let's not, let's do something new. Let's Starfleet Academy. That's where I'm focused. That's what I want. That's where my loyalties lie.
Yeah. It would be easier than ever to, like, I don't know where Tuvok was when he shot that cameo, but like, you can shoot your cameo in your house now, just get a nice thing
on
a green
Zoom
screen behind you and go, yeah, what do you want? Yeah, okay, get out there and find the guys. Yeah. I think that we should probably wait until the Picard body is cold, so to speak. We'll talk about it in a little bit before we start building things on top of it. But something like that could really work. I'm kind of with you in that I think that maybe we should continue to find new frontiers, as it were. But I think people would watch it. I think it would be solid if they want to do that. Speaking of things,
well, that's the thing, is like, yeah, we're gonna watch it.
Oh yeah,
like,
well, yeah.
No matter what they do, there's gonna be, unless they make something horrible. There's gonna be a section of the fan base that's always gonna watch.
Yeah.
But
well, it's a good thing about a fan base. Something that going from things that might happen to things that aren't going to happen, at least not yet. Matalas also on an interview on the Inglorious Treksperts podcast. Mark A. Altman, former show guest on Enterprising Individuals, that's his podcast. He was asking them about that little thing that we mentioned 2 weeks ago when we saw James T. Kirk, or at least a panel saying James T. Kirk, in the Daystrom station, and he was talking about how what's going on with that. And Terry Matalas, he was asked basically point blank if he planned on bringing Kirk back, and he said, well, first of all, he said that he didn't like the way that Kirk was sent off in Generations. I think that's a popular opinion with some of the fan base. And he said that he wouldn't. That's not how I would have sent Kirk off because I'd put his body in Daystrom. He goes on to say, Kirk is dead, but we figured, is his body really under a pile of rocks on that planet? We're not committed. We're not saying he's resurrected. And so it seems like, the point isn't necessarily to make this a hook to something else, but at the same time, if you've done it, it's done. They've already dug him up, literally. So he did leave the door open to, he said, there are always possibilities. Yeah, okay, got it. Star Trek quote, as far as whether anybody would do anything with that going forward. What do you think? What do you think about the prospect of seeing James Kirk return, possibly in the 25th century? If you regenerate him, he's younger. You don't need William Shatner. You can do whatever you want.
If we're gonna see Kirk, it should be in a future season of Strange New Worlds. If and when. Mm-hmm. And it's that same thing of like,
we'll see him in season 2. We know that.
Oh my god! Yeah. Oh my god! I forgot.
He's already been seen on set. Yeah.
That's all I want. They've given it to me. I have it. I forgot about it. Sometimes the ADHD, it works in my favor because can you imagine if maybe I'll forget again and then we'll be watching the show and I'll be like, can you believe that Kirk is
here? We talked about
that. It's the same thing with Data. I mean, and maybe it's just me and maybe I'm being kind of like, maybe I'm being like a crotchety old man about it, but it's like Data died in season 1. It's like, I didn't need him to come back. Mm-hmm. Kirk died. Like, I don't need him to be resurrected. I don't really want any dead characters to be resurrected besides inevitably Spock. But I don't know. What do you think? Is that making sense? Do you agree with me?
I don't know. I've only been alive for as long as I've been alive. Newsflash. And so I don't know what's... Actually, I feel like I do know what's behind the incredible surge in nostalgic storytelling right now. And it has to do with things that were consumed by people that were kids a long time ago. They're adults now, and so they're being marketed to. But also marketed is the key word there, because more and more art is produced by or owned by corporations, and they have a bottom line, and so they need to do something that is going to engage their audience. And so they go, well, you like Spock and Kirk, you like Pike, right? How about Pike? And so that's why we get this stuff over and over again. And so I don't see it stopping anytime soon. I don't know what'll stop it until there's just a big enough negative reaction from the audience, but it doesn't seem to happen yet. And I don't know, like maybe they leave him to cook a little too long, and Chris Pine wants to do a TV show or a miniseries or something. And we get, Chris Pine.
I don't know. His D&D movie's getting really good reviews.
That's true. Yeah. Maybe he'll be in a D&D sequel or a franchise. But then, of course, it can't just be a fun D&D movie. It's got to be a D&D franchise. So that's just kind of the way everything goes now. And, Trek isn't innocent in that they were attempting to do that back in the 90s. But I just feel like, when you look at like the series from the 90s and the 2000s, they were generally circumspect. Like it was fun to have Kang on DS9, or it was fun to have McCoy on TNG, but we were still going to kind of do our own thing. And so, like you, I hope that I like the shout outs and I like to see classic characters come back, but I hope that they keep going forward. I heard that at least it's theorized right now, that the Starfleet Academy series would center around the cadets that we saw in the episode where they're on the ice planet, like I think they said those are going to be the characters.
They did?
That's what I heard. It was going to be following those characters. Now they could just chuck that and it's just a bunch of new people, recast Tom Paris as somebody else or whatever they do. But I'm sure that they'll find a whole collection of interesting cadets for us to follow. Their lives, their loves, their exams. But we'll see in the future.
Oh God, I was talking to my roommates last week about, I think you told me last week on the show that there had been rumors about a Starfleet Academy show that was going to be written by the Gossip Girl people.
Yeah, way back when we started all this. Yeah.
And I told them, and they were both like, God, I would watch that. And neither of them give one single flying whatever about Star Trek. They were like, God, I would die to watch that. And I was like, me too. Like, I want them to, they have this big wide world, and I feel like they're, they're playing it a little safe. And I would like for them to do something that's like really like Gossip Girl, Starfleet Academy. Like get the Riverdale writers on the Starfleet Academy show. Like do something wild and like fun and bring in new people.
Yeah, like the first half hour of Star Trek 2009, where they're running to class and they're hiding under beds and they're cheating on tests. I love that
movie.
Yeah. I could see that happening. Not Chris Pine, he's too old though. Well, that's enough of our scuttlebutt talk. Let's get to our episode for tonight, the 8th episode of the 3rd season of Star Trek Picard. It's an episode called Surrender, and we're here to talk all about it. But first, as always, a warning, we're setting a course for the spoiler zone, listeners. If you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for Surrender is: Vadic forces Picard to make an impossible choice, deliver what he can never give, or watch his crew perish. Their only salvation lies in the mind of an old friend and old foe. Little artistry in that recap. I like that. This episode was directed by Deborah Kampmeyer, and of course, no stardate, but it takes place contemporaneously. No real facts. This is basically like a lot of things are getting paid off in this episode. Nothing really new being introduced. We're just signing the checks here. So what did you think about Surrender?
I liked it. I mean, I think so far this season, I've been having like a pretty mid-level reaction to each episode. I'm like, yeah, it's fun. Mm-hmm. I liked this. I didn't like that. And I feel kind of like it's good. It's whatever about it. Is that making sense? Like, and I was thinking, and while we were talking earlier, I was like, I wonder if it's telling. I feel like both last week, and then I thought maybe it was going to turn into this week, that we spent the majority of the time on the show and not really actually talking about the episode and what happened in it, but about like Star Trek as a whole and what the future is.
Yeah.
And maybe the show is just like forcing us to ask those questions, and it's exciting to talk about. But I thought that was an interesting point. It's like, yeah, it's good. But today I was watching it and I was like, it feels a little bit like a mid-season finale of NCIS.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It feels a little bit like, I like what we're doing. It's entertaining. It's not... It didn't feel a lot like Star Trek, which again, I want them to do different stuff, but then I wish they would commit to like a psychological horror.
Oh, okay.
Like season.
I guess I've never watched NCIS. Are there like 5 different plot threads and like 3 different tones they're trying to accomplish in a mid-season finale of NCIS?
That's a good read.
Because
I guess
that's what
not.
We get here. There's
right. You're right.
A lot going on in this
You're right,
episode.
and that was a good thing to say.
And I would argue maybe too much going on. The idea, that synopsis, that's a good pitch for an episode. It's basically like, it's a Die Hard, right? They're trapped on this thing. They've got there's an outnumbering force. There's hostages up top. How do we get through this? But that's not really what happens in the episode.
Yeah.
And the idea of like asking Picard to make a choice, interesting. Also, a clear homage to Star Trek 3. David is dead, that sort of thing. Except we don't care about Ensign Chiapet as much as we cared about David, Kirk's son. So like when they threaten her or they end up shooting the Vulcan lady, which I felt bad because wasn't that like a big deal? I guess I don't know that actress, but I saw her interviewed in a couple places and people were like, oh, really excited about this new character, this bald Vulcan. Interesting.
Really?
Boom. Dead.
I mean, she did look sick. Like I was like, oh, I love her.
Yeah. So I don't know what happened with that, but you got that. You've got Jack is an X-Man. You've got the Data and Lore thing. You've got Picard and Beverly, having to offer up or not offer up their son. Jack, he's holding a thermal detonator, goes on the bridge. And it's just like, there's just so much
He's got
happening.
a grenade.
Not to mention the fact that I guess we just got rid of Amanda Plummer. I guess that's the end of that.
I know. I watched that. I was like, I don't think we do like danger readings last week. I don't think we even did because it was like episode 7 and then they killed her. Yeah. And I was like,
yeah. So whoever had Vadic in the poll, you win. And the real losers are the makers of Swisher Sweets in the 25th century. I can't believe she's got these little cigarillos with the wood thing.
It's gotta be a joint.
Sweet? Or is it supposed to be a blunt?
I
Maybe
think it's
maybe
supposed to
she's
be
having a
blunt
good
because
time.
she's always holding it she never holds it
She
like a
holds it
cigarette. She's
like
always holding it like it's
yeah,
weed.
that's what it
Because she's
is.
evil. She's villain coded.
If you were
She's smoking a joint.
if you were a changeling and you had lungs for the first time, you'd be hitting that dank OG Kush.
I'd be smoking weed
That's
every
right.
day.
So that's what she's doing. Uh, yeah. Plus, you've got Riker and Troy, being in the cell, which I think fans, and I think myself included, wanted to see them do a scene together again. Be together again. But other than that, it's just there is nothing happens in that scene, and then Worf just shows up and gets them out, and then they're free. So, um, even though this is sort of a penultimate, I've seen that word kind of flying around the Twitter nets. Penultimate next to ultimate episode, going into what is maybe going to be a two-parter or like the big finale. It just still seems like, yeah, mathematically you wrapped up some stuff, but I feel unsatisfied in the fact that you've got so many things going on.
I
The
think that before
Oh,
too,
go
where
ahead.
like we watch an episode of whatever show it is,
Mhm.
and then we get on and I'm like, I'm a little bored, nothing happened. And then you're like, well, this happened and this happened, and also this happened. It's like they do so much that I just stop. I'm like
Oh, right.
not engaged
It's just
anymore. Like the
washing over you.
suspense doesn't build in the right way or the right amount for each like thread.
Yeah.
And I just sit there until something happens. And I'm like, wow, they really killed her.
There's something that
Episode
gets,
8.
yeah, I think less is more can often be, a strong kind of rule in writing. And there's an example that gets used a lot, but it's in TNG, there's an episode called Power Play. And in the episode, these like alien spirits have possessed three different crew members on the Enterprise. And they've taken people hostage because they want to get back to this planet that they came from. There's this war that they were fighting a long time ago. And so basically they're holding a gun to, X amount of characters' heads the entire time. And the whole thing boils down to this prisoner exchange. Like they're going to allow the guys to get from one place to the other. But you've got Worf obviously wants to just get in there and take it. Well, sorry, they're not our crew members anymore. We got to kill them. But everybody else is like, preaching caution. And there's this long walk that they do down one of those crappy TNG hallways. And it's just so full of tension as they go from one place to the other. And that's all that's happening. There's no, Data's not playing with his cat. There's no like B story. And, we basically get the death of this new character who we never knew all that well. And to be fair, maybe they could put the pieces back together. She can T-1000 and come back, but she's gone. And then like we get the death of Lore essentially. Although maybe we should talk about that. I'm kind of messed up about what's happening with the Data and the Lore and the everything else. Like, I guess Data absorbed Lore, but yet he's not really dead because now he's Data and Lore. But Lore, I guess, didn't want that, so he was going to fight against it. Like, how do you feel about the resolution of the Data and Lore thing, of the Data Lore? He should be called Data Lore because that's a reference to TNG. There's an episode called Data Lore.
Um, it's weird for me when I am not excited about something. I thought it was fine. I certainly, when Spot appeared and he started talking about Spot, I was like, oh my god, like that was a lot.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I was like, okay, so now Data will win. It didn't feel super well. And then again, I'm not very happy about them bringing him back in the first place. And so I just wasn't having a lot of really big reactions or feelings. I mean, it was great to see him like reunite with the other characters like that.
There was a big, I don't know what they use for lampshades in the 25th century, but there was a big lampshade tonight. We've talked about them before where they'll do something and then go, isn't this kind of like we did the thing? They go, okay, whatever. And they do this whole thing. They establish that look, Lore's a bad guy. And like Lore's Lore. And he puts himself in the situations that he's in. But we're basically talking about life and death here. And they say, oh, Data's ethical subroutines won't allow him to take a life. Are you sure? Did you ever watch TNG? Data's killed some fools before, especially when the needs of the few outweigh the needs of the many, or vice
Yes,
versa.
sir.
And so he basically wins this thing, and I guess for Laura that feels like death, whatever. But now they're merged, and then he's like, "Well, I just want to know what it's like to be human." And then Picard goes, part of being your human was dying, and you said that you wanted to die. Have we ruined that now?" And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." But of course,
Yeah, Grandpa.
of course, he's like, "No, no, I'm fine. I'm glad to be here now." So it's like they put that in there because they're like, aren't fans going to be like, Data said goodbye? Like he was happy with his journey in life. He had reached the point. He listened to the little song, and he died, and that's what he wanted. And now we're going to rip him back from the digital afterworld, as it were. And I think if you asked Terry Metalis about that, he'd go, "Yeah, I just wanted to have Data back." And it's like, okay, well, all right. I mean, people do that all the time in these long-running franchises, but like, don't bother to put a line in where you try to like make an excuse for like, no, we know that you maybe don't like it. He can use contractions now. That's cool, I guess.
You know what I wish most of all?
What?
Not to change the subject.
Oh, please do.
I wish they just had real guns in space.
Instead of laser guns?
Yeah, like I wish that Picard was like, your taste in wine is pedestrian at best, and he has like a revolver.
Yeah. Malbec, how do you spell it? Yeah. Yeah, you can't play Russian roulette with a phaser. It's just one shot.
Well, you could.
Yeah, it would be a short game.
That would actually, text Mike McMahon right now. Be like, have one of them needs to code a phaser to be like blank 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 stun,
right,
or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So you're like, okay, we're good.
It's
Everyone's
a rotating frequency. 5 of those frequencies are non-harmful to humans, but one of them.
Yeah, one. Yeah.
Of course, you can't go through a list of the things that Data loves without having that picture of Tasha Yar come back. But it's a little stinging when they basically, cut Denise Crosby out of this thing. Like, look, you've brought Data back from being exploded and brain dead. I think we can find a way to bring a descendant of Sella back, or just bring her back somehow. They're all sitting around the table at the end. They're like, it's been a while since we were all here. And it's like, I think at this point people believe that Yar has earned the right to sit at one of these tables. We got 2 episodes left. It could still happen, but it just seems like a little,
that would be wild,
thumb in the eye to pull out that thing. Also, Data never got laid again. Come on. That's it. The one time the guy has sex.
We know he was getting laid left and right.
Yeah, I don't know if him and Jenna ever got into anything fun, but let's talk about what's Jack's deal and the fact that we get him onto the bridge, we get him in front of Vedic, and he's like, tell me what this thing is. Why don't you tell me? Go ahead, tell me what I can do. And she's like, it's not time to tell you yet, so I'm not going to tell you. Oops, I'm dead. But it seems to have something to do with something in his mind. We hear about the red door again. Actually, they say the talking door, don't they? Troy, during their session at the end, is like, you have to see that.
It's very
talking
Lynchian.
Door.
Is it just because I'm Lynch? Is it just because I'm watching
Lynchian.
Twin Peaks? I'm like, the talking red door in your mind.
Yeah.
You what?
Yeah, voiced by David Bowie. Yeah.
I mean, literally. I mean, I just started the 3rd season, so maybe it's just on the mind. But I'm just watching it. And I'm like, I'm like, everything's connected. David Lynch knew something. Twin Peaks is everything.
Yeah, the talking door is so elemental. I mean, for a mental thing, I guess it makes sense, but this show is so good at coming up with the most random bullshit words to describe phenomena and stuff like that. It reminds me of the lightning storm in space. It's like, it's a talking door. Door.
God, every line in that movie is so laser into my brain.
Yeah.
It looks like a lightning storm in space.
Yeah, so there's only, and they took parts of Picard's brain specifically his parietal lobe. Interestingly enough, the parietal lobe is in charge of your senses, I believe. Smell, taste, and touch, and that sort of thing. That's how you interpret those senses. So they took that from Picard's brain, parts that they thought were uh, his Irumodic syndrome, but maybe now might not be Irumodic syndrome. So with all of that we know, and 2 episodes left, we know they can get a lot done. What do you think is going on here?
I think there's something in him.
Which
Like I think
him
that
who?
there's like
Jack?
in Picard, and because Jack is his son, he's screwed up. Like I think there's like a hunk of changeling in Picard, because they said that there was like a mass, that there was something, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a hunk. Okay, I'm gonna double down on the guess. Hunk of changeling goo in Picard. Therefore, Jack is like, something's messed up. He's here in the Great Lake, you know? He yearns for the Great Lake.
Okay.
As do I, but it's Lake Superior.
Do you think so? That's something that he's like passed on to Jack as his son?
Well, I think it has to be something to do with Picard that's more pronounced in Jack, because otherwise I don't know why they'd be saying like, oh, Picard's diagnosis may be false. And also, hey, your son, he really needs to go to the psychiatrist. Like,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Your son's, like you said, X-Men.
Yeah. Yeah. Your son has these powers.
There's something, maybe it's not a changeling, because he has that thing where he can control people. Like, what are we doing?
He's controlling people. It's like Charlie X. Too far back. I think that you might be onto something. And I'm trying, this part of my brain is working on like, they love referencing things. So what's something, let's say that Terry Matalas watched through all of TNG and he found like one thing that we never followed up on. Like, what's the one thing? Did something happen to Picard's brain in an episode, or did he get injected with something? What's something that we could like cast back and go, oh no, that was, changeling that was getting into him? Because it's funny that this is a TNG new season and not a DS9 one, because they're fighting changelings, and the TNG cast never did anything with changelings except for Worf, obviously. Who I guess I kind of like that Worf's like, stab, one more thing, bzz, bzz. Like Worf knows how to fight changelings. He's done this before, so he's just like, zip, you're done.
He's so
done.
funny.
So I don't know. I'll add on to your guess and say that I think that there is something from some episode somewhere. I can't imagine that we're not going to try to.
You think there's a hint?
Yeah, I can't imagine that we're not going to try to get Picard.
There's a hint in the old series.
Yeah. So you watch that for next week, and we'll talk about it.
Cool, I can do that. I got time.
I can't believe that we're not going to try to get Picard back in the Dixon Hill hat again, or something. There's going to be one more thing that we go back for.
Want Grandpa to just go home and be on the vineyard,
right?
And then cut
up, little mulled wine.
10 years ahead. He's in his little like future. He's watching NCIS. He's in his little future wheelchair. He's looking out over the vineyards. Like, let him have some peace.
Yeah. Any Star Trek character, a little peace at this point.
Maybe Beverly is there,
Maybe. Yeah.
Jack visits for dinner. White picket fence. No.
Yeah.
But
after what they did to Ensign Rowe,
cuts to him.
After what they did to Ensign Rowe, I'm terrified of them bringing any DS9 characters back. You're going to say, "Oh my god, it's Major Kira." Oh,
don't say this.
I'll kill you.
Don't say this to me. I'll have a break. It'll be like, sometimes I come home, my roommate, she doesn't watch Grey's Anatomy anymore. I don't really understand. There's some tea she stopped watching.
Oh, really?
But sometimes I'll come home and she'll be like on the floor and she'll be like, I can't even talk about what happened this week. And that's gonna be me. That is gonna be me. I'm being so for real. That's gonna be me. If anything like that happens, it's gonna be me on the floor crying. I won't be on. Just kidding. Of course, I would cry on this podcast for real. But
you know who you kill? Since we're in a murderous mood, you kill Bashir.
Oh my god.
Look, listen. And I love Alexander Siddig. He's great, but he's the cinnamon roll. He's like really smart, and he can do everything. And so you want to get rid of that guy if you're thinking like the bad guy. And then he could play the hell out of a death scene, like tell Dex, whatever. Like, Yeah, that's what you do. You kill him right away, and then we move on from there.
What about Garrick though?
Um,
Because you could bring Garrick back, and he could be like a straight
boy.
shooter. He could do something really, really good, and then die.
I think people would riot if they killed Garrick.
I would.
I thought it was cool. You remember the DS9 doc? I thought it was cruel to kill Nog. Because
Yeah.
they're like, Captain Nog, and then he blows up. It's like, don't kill what? Kill
It's
Captain
like,
Nog.
I know.
Do
It's like,
that.
oh my god, jeez.
Yeah. So anyway, that we're just pitching a new show. That's Star Trek Legacy next fall. Any other thoughts about
Paramount,
this?
you have our numbers.
Yes.
You know where to contact
We're
us.
on notice. You've got the information. Anything else to say about this episode before we close it up for the night?
No, I think we cover. I really wish Picard just had a Glock.
Yeah, just he carries it in the back like that, waistband of his
He's like, your taste in wine is shitty at best.
That's right. Let's see how many slugs you can take, changeling. You already pointed out, like, I could talk about this generally for like hours, but as far as this episode goes, we know what happened, and we have questions about the future, and the only way to get to the future is the slow way. So we'll be back next week to talk more about that. But for this week, that's it. If you like what you hear on the show, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD to get updates and also find out when new episodes come out. You can tweet to us on the show using the hashtag Discoverage, or you can email us at EISTPOD@gmail.com. And while you're on the internet, head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a rating and a review. Those really do help us out. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend about it. Discoverage will return next week, April 13th, for the 9th episode of the 3rd season of Picard. It's an episode titled Vox, and we'll be here next Thursday to cover it. Going live once again at 8 p.m. Central, so join us then. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter to get notified when we're live and broadcasting. That's it for tonight. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about Star Trek Picard, and tell people where they can find you online.
My personals are Gundor Gold, although I do have my Instagram on private now and my TikTok. So if you're not a freak, then you can be part of the club. So please feel free to follow, even though they're on private, but I will screen you if your socials contain red flags. I won't reveal
you don't know
what the red flags would be.
Right. That's the only way to
everyone's
do a red
welcome.
Flag. Yeah. You can't let people know what the flags are. Otherwise, they'll put the flags up. Yeah.
My Twitter, that's a free-for-all. Get on there. But if you follow my Twitter, then you have to also follow Star Trek Unlimited. Otherwise, I'll find you. So follow Gondor Gold and Star Trek Unlimited on Twitter.
So that's 2 follows to follow her. Love her, Star Trek Unlimited. I don't care what you do, but I'm on Twitter at @KA1IBAN. And of course, you can find the show at EISTPOD. And while you're here, why not hit a bell, hit a heart, subscribe to us here on Twitch, get notified when new episodes are released. That's it for us. Thanks for listening. We're signing off. This is Aaron for Ella saying, live long and prosper.